I wouldn't use it myself. Oh my gosh, I'm battling D-Shot. Oh, yes. I think he's streaming right now, too.
Oh, mother... Oh. No. God, this...
A few moments later.
Oh my gosh, I'm facing D-Shot again.
My nose is burning somehow.
Hey everyone, so I finally hit Legend with a team that involves Lugia, and that's been something I've been trying to do for a couple seasons now. I created a Lugia team a few seasons ago before I even had Aeroblast and before the Dragon Tail buff. It makes sense why I didn't hit it before, but Lugia these days is popping off. The interesting thing about this team is I started using it earlier this past week around Monday or so, and Wednesday morning I actually got alerted by one of my patrons that EP6 released the same exact team on his YouTube channel. He likely could have been using the team before I even did, so I think it's safe to say that this is probably more his team than my team, but I'll link EP6's video down below in the description, so definitely check out his footage. Obviously he's a really great battler, and if he's using a team and it's doing well for him, then I feel pretty good about this team too myself. So the team was Melmetal lead with Lugia and Groudon in the back, Groudon with Dragon Tail. Something to note is that my Lugia is running Hydro Pump in these videos because I just don't have one with Aeroblast, and it's 98%, so I didn't feel like using Elite TM on it. I'm hoping to get the Hundo one day and then Elite TMing that with Aeroblast. But in almost every scenario, you'll want Aeroblast over Hydro Pump. There's only a few scenarios where Hydro Pump is a little bit better, but it's not good enough to justify running it over Aeroblast in my opinion. I did best buddy my Melmetal in this scenario, mostly because it's the only one that is best buddied, but I do like it best buddied in the lead as well for CMP purposes. Before we get into the battles, a big shout out and thank you to all my patrons who've been supporting my content creation. If you'd like to have early access to some of my strategies and lineups, or you'd like to see behind the scenes footage of my battles, feel free to sign up in the link down below. Okay, so going into the first battle, it is a Dialga lead, and these are super common, so figure you want to see how to play this out. Obviously, with a Melmetal, this is very favorable, so definitely just stay in this matchup, and you just can just superpower away. Now, most Dialga users are pretty smart, and they won't drop their move until after you drop the superpower, just so that their Draco Meteor or Thunder do a lot more damage. So now they lock in their Groudon here. So Lugia is a much better check to Groudon than Groudon is. However, the reason why I did this, and you're going to see in a second on why, and this one's, I believe, is running Mudshot, which is charging to moves a little bit faster, is because you need the Lugia in case there's a Kyogre in the back. And so here comes a Kyogre, right? And so anytime you could keep the Lugia and Melmetal pairing alive, it usually gives you a really high chance of winning, especially if you have switch advantage. The biggest thing probably to worry about with these two is a Giratina Origin, but even then it's not terrible. So as you can see, my Lugia actually survived a Blizzard there. I did have to bait out a Shield with Rock Slide, and now I'm going to go for double Superpower and take out this Dialga right here. Yeah, Lugia is super bulky, easily the bulkiest Pokemon in all of Master League, so you want to take advantage of that bulk as much as possible and save your shields for other mons. Alright, so in the Melmetal Mirror matchup, right, so this is where the CMP can come in handy. A lot of people tend to let the first superpower go for some reason, but this one they didn't, and it's fine, and so this opponent actually swaps out. And I'm going to drop a superpower on their Snorlax. Actually, I'm going to drop two, I guess, and then swap out, just to really soften it up. Snorlax is not that big of a deal for Lugia anymore. I don't know if it's ever been a huge deal, but the Dragon Tail buff really helps Lugia just farm things down. And these body slams aren't doing a ton. Lick is obviously super effective, but it's non-stab. It's not the best ghost move. And my opponent actually does swap out to their Melmetal here, so they have this thing locked in. Now, here's where the Hydro Pump does a little bit more damage than Aeroblast, but again, you're not going to beat a Melmetal with a Lugia either way, so you do want the Aeroblast, right? I'm going to go for Sky Attack just to do some chip damage here. They're not going to shield, which makes sense. And I swap in my Groudon here, so now I can start farming this thing down. And I don't really want my own Melmetal against this thing. And so here's the thing with Groudon. So I was building up to Earthquake here. The Dragon Tail helps you cover a lot of dragons. Obviously, I'm down a shield, so I have to... it's a little bit worse of a matchup, but with shields up, it's not too bad. Now, the reason why I didn't throw the Fire Punch for bait there is because you have to go for the Earthquake. If you throw that Fire Punch and they let it go or they shield, they know they can farm extra against you, right? So I had to go for a catch right there, and luckily I was able to do it. Now this is superpower, I'm done for. Fortunately, it's just a body slam, and it was a good catch attempt by them for sure. But now I was able to farm up to rock side and take out the Giratina. So super close match. But a lot of Melmetal leads tend to be fairly close too, right? Because team comp in the back usually is kind of similar in some regards in terms of coverage. Alright, so in this specific scenario, I do throw the superpower here and they don't shield. It's good and bad, I guess, to throw it, because if they don't shield it, then the second superpower, they definitely shield. But if they keep CMPing you on the superpowers, then it's kind of tough, right? So I'm going to charge up just to a superpower and then swap out to my Lugia here. Because Lugia definitely loses to Melmetal, but when it's debuffed twice, the, rock sides aren't going to do enough, right? Now, obviously, if I had Air Blast on Lugia, it would be way better here. It's going to do a lot more damage to Dialga, and one of the big changes since I created my last Lugia video is that Sky Attack has been nerfed, right? So I'm going to just farm this thing down. Even if it's a Thunder, it's not a big deal. It ends up being an Iron Head, so that's fine. They actually come in to snipe me down with their Melmetal. They come in superpower, so I'm going to just swap to my Groudon here. Now, the reason why I do this is because I'm getting a head start in farm, and they're already debuffed, and then I have a bunch of energy on my Melmetal still, right? So that could come in handy. I don't want to just waste it on their Melmetal. And here comes a Lugia. So this is a little bit tricky, because Lugia, like I said, is a good counter to Groudon. Obviously, with Dragon Tail, it gives you a lot more coverage for flyers, right? Like Lugia, Yveltal. But again, that stored energy on Melmetal came in really handy here, able to throw back-to-back rock slides, which is way more efficient than throwing the superpower on Melmetal, in my opinion. Now able to just get to this Fire Punch before they can farm me down, and then it's super close to Dialga still alive, but able to finish it off. So super close matchup, but again, most Melmetal leads can be kind of tricky. Alright, so this matchup is really solid to see, right? So Lugia again, the lead, you definitely check. And then they swap in their Melmetal. Almost every Melmetal will shield that. It makes sense because it's going to do a lot of damage. And they know you're going to dip out, but it just seems like a waste of not shielding. But here's the thing. Groudon is such a good counter to Melmetal that, you end up going up a shield and maintaining switch advantage. And if you do what I do right here, you farm up as much as possible. That way you have some extra energy for their next Pokemon coming in, and they have little to farm off of you. Now they decided to reveal the third Pokemon instead here, and it's going to be Kyogre. So it's going to be really solid, and this is definitely going to be a Surf, so I have no reason to shield it. And then now I have switch advantage and shield advantage. It's going to be very tough for my opponents to come back from this, right? No reason for me to shield this. Even if it's Aero Blast or Hydro Pump, I will survive it. I'm going to save that shield for the Lugia. And the thing is, Melmetal still doesn't do too bad against Kyogre too, right? So having this Melmetal still alive is not a big deal. Again, still surviving these moves here, and then they do swap in their Kyogre. I'm going to throw the superpower and then just throw the Sky Attack on the Lugia, just to really chip down this thing, and then yeah, I think they just concede there, which makes sense. Alright, so against another Lugia lead here, again, very, very favorable. Now what do they do when they come in Groudon here, right? So I throw superpower, and I should go my own Groudon. Now I'm showing you this matchup because this is kind of a misplay by me. I go in Lugia, right? Now when you saw my earlier matchup, I actually did Groudon, which that was the right way to play it out. Now this is a very solid matchup, and Lugia can win this, right? And their Lugia coming in still has to throw energy against my Lugia, so it's not a bad situation, right? But the issue really comes into play is if they have a water in the back, right? Again, Lugia and Melmetal are really good complementary pairings. Lugia and Groudon, not too bad as well. But Groudon and Melmetal share a lot of the same weaknesses. And so even though I have switch advantage here, see, here's where it becomes an issue, right? Because then they have a Kyogre. You never want to shield this first Surf before you throw a superpower because you could tank it. But I'm going to throw a Rock Slide here. They do shield, which is good because the superpower is going to do a little bit more damage. And then they let that go. Now I come in Groudon. Using a Groudon to check a Kyogre is a very desperate situation you have to be in. But here we are. But here's the thing. That Dragon Tail is so good here. Look at how much farm I could do. I could farm that down, which puts me in a really, really good spot. I'm sorry if you hear a little rattle. This is my Cheggy is playing with a toy in the background. But yeah, so able to still take out the Kyogre. Obviously, that matchup could have been much better for me if I just swapped in my Groudon into their Groudon, right? Then I have Lugia against their Kyogre, and yeah, it would have been a simple matchup, right? So in this specific scenario, against Groudon leads are actually pretty tough in general because, again, you can't really force shields with Melmetal. I throw a superpower and always dip out. But here's the thing. Lugia is your best check to it. Groudon as a safe swap, I'm not usually a huge fan, especially if they have a Kyogre in the back or like a Lugia. Like you can't force a shield in that scenario, right? Lugia can often force shields, which is why I like it. But then again, you have a Groudon mirror as your best check for Groudon in the back. It's kind of hit or miss, right? Sometimes I swap in Lugia, sometimes swap in Groudon for the Groudon lead. It's a tough situation either way. But as you can see here, it wouldn't have mattered. They essentially have the same line except in a different order. In an order that unfortunately beats my line, right? Groudon to Melmetal, Lugia into Groudon, Melmetal into Lugia, right? In these scenarios, it's you pretty much don't have a win con because they have a hard check to everything along the way, and they maintain switch advantage and even shields. There's just nothing you can do, right? But that's fine, you know, just something to recognize. Not every line's gonna be perfect. Got to play it out as best as you can here, so I'm gonna do my best here to play it out. But again, Groudon, especially with Dragon Tail, it just really adds up damage against even Lugia, and my only win there was just to farm it down because they still have a shield, right? So yeah, but honestly, the Dragon Tail buff, a huge bonus to Groudon and a really solid bonus to Lugia as well. You can see that my Lugia, even without Air Blast, still puts in a lot of work, right? Even against some of these dragons in neutral matchups. All right, so this opponent actually throws a Fire Punch right away, so I'm not going to shield it, obviously, because it wasn't an Earthquake. And then they come in Palkia. Again, if I can't re-emphasize this enough, I know some people are skeptical about Dragon Tail Groudon. Dragon Tail Groudon is solid, right? Look at this. It's beating a Palkia, which is a water type, right? But obviously the Dragon typing is making it kind of weak, and you don't really often even need to throw Earthquake. A lot of times, Fire Punch and Dragon Tail is enough. And you can see I actually threw a Dragon Tail against, or a Fire Punch against the Palkia early on. It was a very obvious one, right? But what I needed was a chip damage so I could farm down, right? It doesn't matter if it's an obvious Fire Punch. You know, you're still going to take out the Palkia. Alright, so going into this matchup against the Kyogre, it is kind of a tough lead, right? Because Melmetal is not great against it. But with shields, without opponents using shields, you can actually win the lead like this, right? I think they're either trying to farm me down, or I snuck in a Thunder Shock or denied a, you know, Waterfall. Even if they beat you in the zero shields, it's not a big deal because you just farm down with Lugia. Now, the reason why this is really positive is because you have a Groudon on the back, and Kyogre is probably their best check to that. It's very unlikely they have a second water in the back, right? No one's really running double water in Master League, right? It's unlikely they're going to see a Swampert. Palkia is not too bad too, right? If you have the Dragon Tail, right? And that's pretty much the biggest counters to this thing, right? So my opponent is staying in here, which is kind of weird. And then here comes a Zekrom, right? So that makes sense, right? So it's double Dragon, definitely weak to Groudon. Obviously, it makes sense why they're weak to Groudon because they had a Kyogre lead. But Lugia again, super bulky, surviving this Wild Charge and throwing the Sky Attack afterward to KO it, even though it's resisted, right? And that Dragon Tail damage from Lugia really added up against Zekrom. Lugia beating Zekrom in zero shields is kind of wild because it's a electric type, right? Against a flying type. But yeah, so again, this is another Kyogre line. So this is actually the LollerSox line, which if you don't know LollerSox, he was the first person to hit rank 1 in the GBL leaderboards in season 1, and he climbed all the way to top with this team, right? And so it's a really strong team because we're on season 8 and this team is still around, right? That really goes to show how strong of a team this is. But you might be thinking, how do you beat this team, right? Because it seems definitely team composition, it's not great because Togekiss definitely beats Groudon, Kyogre can beat Melmetal, and then Dialga beats Lugia in a lot of shielding situations, right? Especially if you're not running Air Blast like me. But so the play here is my opponent actually swapped out to preserve their Kyogre, so I was able to land at least a superpower there. I'm going to come in Melmetal here. My plan is to just fast move down at this point. They haven't spent a single shield. Dragon Tailing down a Togekiss is kind of a pain, but there's no reason not to at this point. I'm going to shield the Ancient Power, hope that there's no boost, and there's no boost, and now Dragon Tailing all the way down a Togekiss. But pretty much the only win con in that specific scenario. Alright, Ho-Oh. Actually one of my favorite leads. Ho-Oh's actually pretty solid, especially with Incinerate nowadays. But what I like to do is throw his Rock Slide. Most will shield. Even if they don't shield, what you do is you swap the Lugia. Best case scenario, they throw Earthquake like this. doing almost no damage, which is amazing, right? That's a lot of energy soaked up, and you pretty much almost took out Ho. And if you look at the health of my Melmetal and my switch screen, it still has a lot of play. Or you catch a Brave Bird, and Brave Bird only does about half health to Lugia, and so you could tank it, right? Lugia's not really a Pokemon you really need to shield in most scenarios. So again, these Dragon Tails really adding up, right? Unfortunately, not enough to take out the Dialga, but I'm going to shield this, right? It's probably Draco, and that's fine. It's going to do a decent amount of damage. I'd rather have the farm. Ho is pretty much out of commission, so let's just see what they have in the back. It is a Kyogre, right? So this is kind of rough, right? For my team, because again, I have that Groudon on the back, so I need to chip this down as much as possible, right? Throw in the Superpower, throw in the Rock Slide. Now it's in Dragon Tail range, and I could take out... hopefully a Kyogre with my Groudon, right? Able to Dragon Tail down. Again, that Dragon Tail is super helpful. Mudshot would just not be able to cut it. And then able to finish off the Kyogre, or the Ho there. But yeah, as you can see too, my Lugia safe swap there into their Dialga. Still doing pretty solid with Sky Attack. Again, if you have an Aeroblast Lugia, run that instead. It's so much better, right? I'm just not using it on mine, right? Making my life a little bit harder. Alright, so Palkia lead. What I like to do is drop a superpower and then dip. There's almost no Palkia that shields that, and that's fine. And then here comes a Lugia Mirror, and this is fine too. And we actually CMP. So this is actually a pretty common line you might recognize. I think it's one of the highest ranked PV Poke lines on pvpoke.com. It's Palkia lead with Lugia and Excadrill in the back, right? Excadrill is kind of annoying for this team. It has to play against all three Mons. There's Rock Slide for Lugia, Drill Run for both Melmetal and Groudon. Groudon's not too bad against it though, because it tanks the Drill Run okay. Same thing with Melmetal, they could both tank one Drill Run okay, and then you have some play here, and my opponent is going to concede. Alright, Zekrom. I play it out similarly to Palkia, drop a superpower, then dip out to Lugia. Obviously, Lugia's not great against electric types, but it's got to debuff itself if it does that. It's got to throw something, and as you can see, these Dragon Tails are really adding up. So they're going to throw a Wild Charge, makes sense, and then dip out. And then here comes a Mewtwo. So this is kind of interesting. My guess is this Mewtwo has either Ice Beam or Shadow Ball if they're swapping in to a Lugia. But I'm not going to shield because, again, Lugia very bulky here. I unfortunately over-farm here. I should have thrown a move earlier, but I didn't. So this is unfortunate. So I am going to throw a Sky Attack now, but it does force out that last shield from me. But I do throw another Sky Attack, and they don't shield, so I win switch here, which is really solid. Now I could come in with Groudon here, and then they're going to come in with Dialga. It's a very solid matchup for me. I'm just going to double superpower. Obviously, they're going to throw a move after this, after shielding. But at that point, I'm not too worried. It's going to put it quite low. And they have to probably go for Thunder or Draco Meteor, which would cost them a decent amount of energy. They do have the Thunder. So they're not debuffed here, unfortunately, but I'm going to go straight for the Fire Punch, take it out, and then fire Dragon Tail down. Alright, going into this last matchup, it's Snorlax here. Definitely very favorable here. Or not favorable, it's kind of even. Obviously, they're probably going to run Superpower or Earthquake here. So I usually throw a move and then dip out. Again, you could catch a move, hoping to catch a Superpower, but obviously just Body Slam, that's fine. Again, Lugia does not need to worry about Snorlax here, especially after this much damage to it. Really great catch by my opponent here to catch it on an Excadrill. Obviously, they didn't need to shield that, and I unfortunately cannot build up to Hydro Pump in time, so I'm just going to go for another Sky Attack. Do as much chip damage to this thing as possible, because again, Excadrill has a lot of play against this team, so I want to wear it down, and then hopefully farm down with my Groudon. So, Dragon Tail is resisted, but so is Thundershock, but Thundershock is really resisted. You can't really Thundershock down a ground type. You could definitely Dragon Tail down a ground type. Or a Steel type, actually. But my opponent actually does throw a Focus Blast here. When I have two shields up, a bunch of energy on Melmetal, now I'm at a tough spot. Really well played by my opponent right there. Obviously, kind of a 50-50 call, but I had no idea they're running Focus Blast either way, so I figured it was kind of worth the gamble. Turned out it was not worth the gamble. Yeah, all that stored energy on Melmetal unfortunately did go to waste. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm going to show one last clip from my last battle climbing up to Legend on my Patreon streams. All right, last one. Come on, let's time to clutch it out. Oh, this CP or this person's rating is not super high, but oh my gosh, we get the worst lead ever too. All right, let's see how this. I mean, it could be worse, I guess. Oh, it is Mudshot too. Alright, I've swapped to Groudon before. No, I need to go. Ooh, okay, this is really nice. Well, okay, that's something. Where they have Dialga? Oh, Lugia. Actually, this is not bad. We definitely want to see this out of the way now. But what do they have? Yveto, maybe? That'd be kind of rough. I'm letting moves through, though. So, I need to farm down this, or put this Lugia low enough so I could farm up to double. I'll just let whatever comes. I'll just not shield the Melmetal. Probably Air Blast me, right? Yep, that's fine. Okay. I'm not going to make it to a Hydro Pump, I think. So they're going to Air Blast me. I need to farm up to double. Maybe they get impatient and then... No, okay, that's fine. Yeah, I can't shield this. I'm just going to farm. It's not looking good, y'all. It's a rough lead. Alright, drop this. This Groudon is low. If they have a Kyogre in the back, I'm screwed. Okay. I'm gonna throw this and then dip. Dragon Tail will be nice here. Please. Oh, they let it go. Yeah, I knew it was a Fire Punch, but they're staying in here for some reason. Yeah, and what? Oh, yeah, okay. That's fine. What do I shield? I guess maybe I don't shield this guy. Oh, nice. Okay, now we go straight Earthquake. I think we're good. I think we're good. I survived this. Oh my gosh. Brutal, man. Nice. Oh, we finished it, man. Yeah, I swear, if this is only 4 points like Dijon predicted, that was a roller coaster, man. Those back-to-back Zekrom losses. A few hours before him. There we go. Nice. Anyway, this team has treated me really well, so hopefully it works well for you. And again, a shout out to Epi6 for also creating a video on this team. Definitely check out his footage as well if you would like to see additional matchups. I usually have the cast at the end of my outros, but my camera battery's about to die, so I'm just gonna make this quick. If you like this video, feel free to give it a like and share, subscribe for future content, hit that notification bell to get alerted right when I post a new video, and I'll see y'all next time.